Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to just move on from our Green Dragon interactions, and I also want to introduce the Place of Mystery into the campaign and see how we can phase that in. And I'd also, just as a kind of recap, I thought I'd show you what my game journal was that I'd written up, just to show you what my kind of process is when I'm kind of documenting all the events in the game. And the idea is that we build up a kind of storyline. It doesn't have to be, as I said, I think in a previous video, it has to be like a fantasy novel, but it's something that's enough to give us one, kind of a good summary of what has happened, and two, maybe give us a bit of atmosphere and a kind of feeling that we've got a bit of investment in this game world and the themes that we're developing. So it's kind of a multi-layer type objective for the journal. But the main thing is it just gives you a kind of summary of where you are. You can go back and refer to it and say, well, what did I do on day 12 of April 170, that type of thing. It's useful for just building up that information. And then I have a kind of individual sheets where I look at different aspects of the game. Things like game notes about what Fredegar's his meetings have been, which I'll kind of show as well as we build up this folder of information and trying to sort it and order it out. And I'll have to get things like dividers and whatever just to kind of make sure it's all orderly and controlled. But just on the game journal, I'm saying that I've called this day -2 to -1. So I'm assuming that our calendar starts on day 1, and this is almost like the pre-game. So day 1 will be the start of the campaign. So the player characters, they gather and meet at the Green Dragon Inn. Tristan leaves his home and, following the advice of Jasper, Jasper's one of Seward's henchmen, takes up residence. Lindris is there and known. He's a known and befriended associate of Jasper, and the two of them, Lindris and Tristan, agreed to strike an alliance. The next day, which would be -1, Dagobert arrives, and following the guidance of the chapter, he is going out to fulfill his mission. And that's what all level 1 clerics do in the Church of Bane. They go out and adventure and bring back the rewards to the church. And his advice was to seek out adventurers. So that's what he's done. They form a group and agree to find a place of mystery to explore and begin their adventuring life and training. Okay. Now, we start the game proper on day 1. So this is the commencement of residency in the Green Dragon, and this is where the clock starts ticking on the 100 gold pieces per level, which will be payable on, I'm using, this is my simplified calendar, which is 4 weeks of 7 days. Sunday is a rest day and a worship day. Every other day is potentially a work day. Saturdays maybe a little bit less, maybe a half day or something. So I've got Monday the 1st. I put in March because I was explaining our climate in Scotland. It's not very good, and March is probably about the earliest you'd want to try and venture out if you're doing any extensive outdoor campaigning. I do have weather rules. I'm going to go into them in a bit more detail when we come to that point where we venture outside. But the weather's not really that important just now because we're all inside the Green Dragon Inn. So I've got party assembles in Green Dragon Inn. That's number 1, day 1. So we've commenced our residency. That evening, they have contacts with 2 of the prominent guests and Fredegar, the landlord. So we have Baldur Bloodfist. He was our half-elf fighter thief, but not too good manners. We've had a long talk a few rounds of drinks, but it's ended on a lukewarm outcome, and so the relationship's been put on hold. We've had a kind of not really much of a contact with Hallas, the investigator, but he's given us a kind of glaring, suspicious look, which we don't want to repeat. And then Fredegar as well. We've had a bit of an interaction with him where he's kind of come away from the conversation and maybe a few lines that we've exchanged with him, a bit suspicious and worried about maybe his credit line. So that kind of sets up the scene. So what I'd like to do is just kind of resolve some of the situation with Fredegar and Hallas, and just see whether we can come to almost like play that through and see what the impact is on the characters. And I thought the way to do that is to really just think what the two characters are thinking and how we could potentially resolve that. So we've got Fredegar. He showed strong suspicion of characters, and then this is how we can almost like take it through. So we're in a position where he's suspicious of the characters. Now I was thinking, well, what would Fredegar do in that situation? Well, like any good innkeeper, he will research his guests, and what he does is he's used his deputy Seymour, his manservant, and what Seymour does is he ascertains that Jasper is acting as a patron, and he can vouch for Lindris and Tristan, and also that Dagobert, he is from the Church of Bane. He's a respected brother or member of the Hawksmoor chapter. So Fredegar has established that there's no need to be suspicious, so we could probably dampen down Fredegar's expectation. So the way I do that is I still use the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I use our one table, but what I do is I interpret this just based on what Fredegar's reaction would be to that kind of scenario. That he's done a bit of investigation, he's followed up a bit, he's followed up his suspicions, and it doesn't look as though his suspicions are tenable. So what I would do is I would probably add a modifier, and I would probably add on maybe about 30-40%, because we would be expecting. So let's add on 30% to that. So he has an 18, so he's still not too happy, he's 48. So he's neutral, uninterested, uncertain. So let's do the R1 to 2. He's uncertain again. So we're just not really hitting it off with Fredegar. With the relationship, there's something niggling at the back of his mind about our characters, and maybe they'll have to go out into the wilds and justify his belief in them. So what have we got? Uncertain. Yes, he's still suspicious, wary, dubious. Let's say he's a bit more guarded now. So I think the way to interpret that is that if we will demand some form of advance, and say that's between, let's say, we'll do our D3, on a 1 to 2 it's 5%, on a 3 to 4 it's 10%, and on a 5 to 6 it's 15%. So he's going to demand a 5% deposit. So I'll make a note of that in my notebook. Just get my paper. So we'll put Fredegar 5% deposit for March. So we'll resolve that the next day, day 2, when he comes to see the characters. And on Hallas's side, again, he was left with mild irritation, suspicion of characters, remembering that he had an intensity of 4, so it's probably just he is irritated with them. He doesn't really like the look of them too much. He needs to be convinced. And then we thought we'd have a -10 reaction adjustment in the future. So I posited a scenario where Hallas comes over to Fredegar. He says, Fredegar, what's the story with these 3 individuals? Are they potential trouble? What are they doing here? There's not too many of that. They're that elven kind around here. what's their backstory. And Fredigar says, well, I don't really have too much of a track record with them. But I do know that Tristan is a good sort. His father is a tanner in the place. He's lived here all his life. He's got a bit of a history with his parents. He was an orphan child. But he is a good sort. Lindris has been befriended by one of my Lord Seaward's henchmen, who is a notable trainer of the dark arts of camouflage and subterfuge and counterinsurgency, and put that into medieval speak. So I think we can probably say he's okay. And also that we've got a brother of the Church of Bain. So I do have a personal relationship with the Lord of the chapter house leader. We have a special agreement about Hawksmoor beer, which you have been imbibing tonight. I would say that he has good credentials. So I don't think you need to be as suspicious of them. But of course, you are Halas, the investigator. You obviously have a sixth sense about these sort of things. So if you want to continue, but I would advise that there's nothing to worry about. So taking that on board, we could say that he has a -10, and then what Fredigar's done is he's talked a good game to say that the characters are okay. The reputation isn't as poor as worried, and let's see what the dice say for that. So I would say he has a -10, and then we'll add on another 30 for that. So that's a plus 20 to this roll. we are really not doing too well. So that is a 32. So let's see. I don't think Halas has been convinced by that. And you can see how these dice can sometimes, you're in your head, you're thinking, yeah, surely they're going to get a cut or break here and whatever, and it just keeps on taking from you. But we live with what dice deals on us. 63. No, sorry. 12 plus 20. That's 32. So 20 uncertain, but 55% prone to negative. So we're back to almost like base 1. No, but he's not negative. So he is come round a wee bit. He's still a bit uncertain, but he says, "Okay, I understand this what you've been saying. I'll take it on board. The fact that now that I know a bit more about their background, but there's just something that I'm just not quite sure about." And Fredigar says, "I agree. I think I'm asking for a deposit, and also, they still have to prove their mettle in going out adventuring." So he's going to say he's still a bit suspicious, but much less. Okay, I wanted to resolve that situation because I thought it was important just to see how these reactions carry through and how you can use that table in any situation. If you apply just the high level modifiers, and that's what I want to do for any interactions, all interactions, and also any interpersonal things to do with characters or monsters or any NPC. I want to use that table. Obviously, what we've done here is we've put in any relevant modifiers. So high level, I didn't really think I needed to do too much to kind of load Fredigar's reaction, and also with Halas, but they still came out poor. It doesn't say that it was going to be a foregone conclusion, and it hasn't been. We've still got a kind of neutral kind of outlook to the characters. Okay, now, just before we go any further, I thought I'd been looking through the Dungeon Master's Guide, and on page 86, there is page 86, or page 80, starts on page 87. Gary Gygax explains the campaign and what you should do to get your campaign started. So I thought it'd be an interesting exercise to compare what he advises and what he says you should do with what we've actually done in our campaign so far. If we do, if we just read through the relevant paragraphs were these two paragraphs, and this was kind of like an introduction. So it says, unlike most games, AD&D is an ongoing collection of episode adventures, each of which constitutes a session of play. You as a dungeon master are about to embark on a new career, that of universe maker. You will order the universe and direct the activities of each game, becoming one of the elite group of campaign referees referred to as a DM in the vernacular of AD&D. What lies ahead will require the use of all your skill, put a strain on your imagination, and bring your creativity to the fore. Test your patience and exhaust your free time. Being a DM is no matter to be taken lightly. So, wow, what an introduction. And it says it's a rewarding but difficult job being a dungeon master. So that's your dungeon master side. That's what they're interested in, is creating this universe, a mere universe that you have to create. But there is a caveat, because your campaign requires the above from you and participation from your players. To belabor an old sore, Rome wasn't built in a day. You're probably just learning, so take small steps at first. So I think that's what we're doing, is that we're not creating an entire universe and a setting, because what's the point? This is going to we're going to take this approach organically, and actually just work outwards from the starting area. The milieu for initial adventures should be kept to a size commensurate with the needs of the campaign participants. Okay, so I think we've got that in our setup. We've got the initial setup is this, which is only, that's 15, 30, 45, that's 75 miles across. And also we've got our own subhex, which is 50 miles across. So I don't think that's too excessive. It's the 75 miles across is effectively the same size as southern Scotland going into the Highlands, and 50-mile areas like one of the county I used to live in when I was growing up. So it's not massive, but it's still not something that's irrelevant. He says your available time as compared with the demands of the players. So that's just about just how you can balance up your time with what you do. So I think this approach of just doing small, less is more type thing at the start is what we're after. This will typically result in you're giving them a brief background. Okay, so we've done that for our characters. We've given them a bit of a backstory, but maybe not like ad infinitum. Placing them in a settlement. Okay, so we've done that. We've put them in the village of Marchton, and stating that they should prepare themselves to find and explore the dungeon ruin they know is nearby. So that's what we still have to do. We still have to seed. We've established that there is a dungeon and ruin by mapping out the 50-mile subhex, but we have to basically inject that into the campaign. As background, you inform them that they are from some nearby place where they were apprentices learning their respective professions, that they met by chance in an inn or tavern. Well, that's the Green Dragon Inn, and they have met, and we've established their setup, and resolved to journey together to seek their fortunes in the dangerous environment, and that beyond the knowledge of common to the area, they know nothing of the world. Placing these new participants in a small settlement means that you need to do only minimal work describing the place and its inhabitants. Likewise, as player characters are inexperienced, a single dungeon or ruins map will suffice to begin play. Well, I would say that we've achieved that. We've stuck to the spirit and the letter of the law, I would say, in most instances. So I think that's a tick in the box as far as we're concerned. But what we haven't done is introduce a place of mystery and almost like firm up on that situation. So that's what I want to do now. I want to All we've done in our discussions has established that there's a ruined palace here, and it probably had a dignitary from the imperial times, and it was part of this event, this cataclysm that affected the region 170 years ago and created these no-go zones of rough hexes all over the place, which were in most instances previous strongholds or settlements of what were known as the 13. So these were the council leaders who had their centres of power all over the region. Right, and when I'm from previous campaigns that I've run, when I've had the first place of mystery, that is a kind of special because that's the first thing the characters are going to do. They're going to go to the starting inn, we're going to generate all that, we're going to generate the occupants, and one of them should be a patron. So you'll recall from our random generation table of the inn, we had occupants, and one of them would be a patron. And ordinarily, when I've chosen like an adventure ruler, soldier, priest, sage, etc., they would be the ones saying, right, I've got a bit of a mission, or I know about, I've got information, there's this local place of mystery, why don't you go and explore it, why don't you go and, give us certain various reasons, rationale for going to do that. But it actually focuses them down that. For the first, this is only for the first mission. Thereafter, the patrons are used for seeding other missions that I've got a mission generator, but I won't show you that just now. I'll keep that till we actually come to doing after this delve. So because we didn't get a patron, what I would do, I would introduce another mechanism. So what I'd propose is that because this place of mystery is almost like auto-seeded, we actually use another vehicle, and this is where I bring in, let me just check my notes. Yeah, this is where we bring in, well, imagine the characters are still in the Green Dragon Inn that evening. They've just had their interactions with Halas, Baldur, and Fredegar. It's getting towards the end of the evening. It's almost approaching closing time. They notice that there's a small group of residents gathering around the hearth. Big fires roaring in the corner, and there's what they haven't noticed this character before. He's like a kind of stooped over fellow sitting in a seat. He's the village elder. He's a sage, and what he's doing, he's talking about the old days, and he's got a kind of like a little group of people that are kind of in awe of his stories and whatever, and the characters kind of come over and join in. And they sit down and they think, oh, this is interesting. Let's listen to see what he's got to say. So what he's doing is he's going on about, he tells them about the old days when the place was recolonized about 50 years ago. We'll just refer to this map, we'll give an idea. He talks about Marchton and how this area was recolonized about 50 years ago, specifically Marchton, which had previously been settled during the imperial times. They'd re-established a founding of Hawksmoor, which is a village, and they built a tower called the Watchtower, which was looking over these rough lands here. There had been a prohibition at that time of any adventuring southwards to the south. They said you must not venture beyond this area, basically because the people were so fearful that any adventuring into these zones might release some terrible horrors from the previous age. They weren't sure what was going on. All they saw was smoke and strange noises echoing over from these regions. But recently, this sanction, this rule, this bylaw has been revoked, and Lord Seaward's come in and said, right, okay, I feel now that we're in a position to go on the offensive. We're not on the back foot anymore. Let's explore these regions. Let's find out what's going on. Let's see what's in here. Let's root these brigands out that keep on coming in and terrorizing us. We've got to attack is the best form of defense. So that's kind of his strategy. And what this has done is it's created an environment in Marchton where the it's encouraging adventurers to come. It's adventurer friendly. They have the prospect of exploring and maybe reclaiming valuable treasures, and this is aiding and abetting Siwa's plan, where the more conquest, the more monsters that are slain, the more areas that are kind of sanitized and neutralized, the more his power base will increase, and that's his mission that the king's given him. So that is kind of the story that's going on, that's playing on in the round the hearth. Now, this sage, he goes on to say, right, you're probably wondering what some of these ruins are in places of mystery that we're talking about. And he says, to the south, and you can almost, on a clear day, you can see it from the mountain, there is what we call the Lost Palace of Dunmorna. So Dunmorna was the name of this region before during the Empire. This region here, and it would spread into here. And he says there is a ruined palace, and the background to that is in the Wizard's War. This location was destroyed, and with the result that there was a chain reaction which set off the dormant volcano there to erupt and destroy and cover the palace, which was situated at the foot of this mountain. He goes on to say that the region was devastated, and these two rough hexes, were covered in lava fields. All the surface construction was destroyed or covered in the lava flow that came out of the volcano. So, now I know some of that sounds a bit technical, and it's probably not the way that the guy would be narrating it, but imagine the sage as being far more kind of vivid in his language, and everybody's going, ooh, and ah, and oh, that's, yeah, and they're engrossed. He's got the audience they're in the palm of his hand. He then goes like old kind of Boromir. Remember Boromir, Sean Bean in the Council of Elrond? And he did that. I think it's almost like a meme now, where he says he does that with his fingers, and one does not simply walk into Mordor. And I think that's been used in all sorts of memes. Well, he does that kind of thing by saying this area it still has geothermal activity. He doesn't say it like that, but that's the essence. And he says there's vents and fissures. And they exhume and throw out clouds of toxic smoke and mist and steam. There's a gloomy and an oppressive atmosphere and a sense of dread. So everybody's kind of shaking in their boots, and the characters are quite inspired and think, oh, this is exciting. This sounds really interesting and right up our street. And then he says, well, there was people that lived here before. And this was a palatial residence of a prominent dignitary in the empire. And she was a high-level servant and deputy to Azeroth, 12th of the 13. So Azeroth the Magnificent, who was a senior warlock, one of the councillors, the 12th of this 13 council that ruled the empire. And he had given this palace to his, effectively his mistress, and she was the High Sorceress Callistra, servant and deputy to Azeroth. And so he had his center of power here, and she was the sorceress that was ruling this area. And she was an evil, very lawful evil, extreme lawful evil. She had a tyrannical rule over this area. It scarred it, and all sorts of strange magics going on. But she was collateral damage when there was a war, and she was a prime site for targeting for one of the other 13s who had many grudges against Azeroth and his lieutenants. So she has been destroyed. There's been a chain reaction. What's happened is the whole palace has been covered in lava. All that's left is catacombs and chambers underground. So that's why he kind of hints that, that's the situation. So the point of that exercise was to basically set up the place of mystery. So hopefully that's what we have as our target. And what I would do is I would just go away and journal all that information into my notes, into my game journal. So for day one, I would have I would have the resolution of Halison and Fredegar, whether they're still feeling a bit about the characters, and then I would say place of mystery, the fact that they've been related, this big spiel about it's here, this is what the background to it is, and this is potentially how you should approach it, what dangers are lurking. So the characters are kind of left with a situation where they go off to bed and they've got something to think about for the next day. Now, just going back to the calendar, as I said, I don't want, I thought about one-to-one time, and I've seen that being used on YouTube videos and through some of the web pages that support Dungeons and Dragons, the first edition Dungeons and Dragons. I don't propose I'm going to use exactly one-to-one. What I'm going to do is say, I'll stick to the spirit, because I want it to be generally close to a one-to-one type of situation. But what I think is you could replace that with just having really tight calendar control. You don't have to be a slave to say, right, it's March the 3rd. It's got to represent what I do on March the 3rd. I might be off on holiday for a week myself, or 2 weeks. What do I do then on one-to-one time? Do I just say the characters are, I don't know, sitting around in the Green Dragon Inn, or twiddling their thumbs, or maybe they do a bit of training or something? I don't really think I would rather have it rooted in the game world, and say I have a group of characters that are doing something here, and another group of characters doing something here. I can't maybe have these other characters do anything until these ones have caught up. I think I'd rather use that as a kind of time management. So I think that's fair. Okay, right. Just seeing the time. Yeah, I think there's only a few other things I want to cover in this one. I maybe just step back now, and I just talk about my guidelines. And I know it seems like I've introduced a lot of new guidelines. I've got all these different tables and stuff like that. But to me, I don't think I have really changed. I don't feel like I've changed the core rules at all, and the procedures in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So everything in this, I feel that I am utilizing it. And all I'm doing is maybe interpreting it my own way. And anything I've introduced in ways of, like say the interaction mechanic, which is our big catalyst that we've got in the Green Dragon Inn. All I've done is to use that is to support the solo role-playing. So it's nothing to say that, there's no interaction mechanic in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. But what do you do about sparking, whether you do have an intervention or something? So any of my tables, like this one here on what are they doing type table. It's 20 different options. And also when we were doing the setup, um, we had this table. What was it? Yes, local events, which caused our brigandage. All I can see that they're doing is that they are introducing some friction and generating events. And there's no other mechanism, unless I just sat down and I was just making things up as I went along. I still want a kind of that random feel on it, that it's quite exciting. So I find out, is there a famine? There's maybe a powerful wizard has moved here. And I want to react to that. I don't want to just sit there and think, oh, what's a good idea for the next bit of my journal? I'm writing away in my journal here. Day one or day two, or the characters get up and then they go off and do this and that, whatever. And I don't have any kind of input into that. I like to have this kind of a bit of like mechanisms to generate the events, and also a mechanism to resolve any of the interactions. So I'll just use the Dungeon Master's Guide reaction table to do that. I've got this here on page 63, and I think this is enough to just say, well, that covers everything. You can have the high low. I think one thing that I do like to bring in, remember with the degree of severity in the Green Dragon Inn, we had the importance on a scale of 1 to 10 and the intensity on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, when you think of it, the scale of 1 to 10 is quite a common, it's a known mechanic used in our world. How many times have you been asked, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? You go to a doctor and say, pain or something, and we've got like a bit of a family joke when we're all going out and we're not, the level of hunger on a scale of 1 to 10. How hungry are you? And the family joke is that I don't really get too hungry when I'm out, and they're all at 10s and they're rabid, they're dying to go to McDonald's, and I'm only about a 2 or a 3. That's the standard joke, but it's easily understood. And I'm thinking, well, you could use that 1 to 10 on lots of things. You could have just to gauge the extent of something or the severity of something. And even on the character side, you could have it. You could have a scale of 1 to 10, how they feel about situation. So we had that thing with Baldur in the meeting, and they were a bit were the characters lukewarm, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how enthusiastic were they? If they rolled low, they weren't enthusiastic, and maybe they didn't like him very much. But on a 10, they overcame it. They thought that, maybe he's got some shortcomings, but hey, deep down he's an okay guy. That's where you can get all that nuance in, and I think that's a very simple mechanic just to bring in. And my goodness, it's not. I wouldn't say it's breaking canon or anything. All you're doing is just bringing in a solo role playing mechanism. Okay, I think I'm sounding like I'm on a soapbox, giving or providing a justification. I'm quite happy the way my tables are assisting this solo role playing experience, and I just hope I can continue showing you different ways that I deal with each of the situations. So when we come to doing the equipment and going around the town, I can show you my mechanic to do that. Which hopefully doesn't break any rules. And then when we go out into the wilderness and we adventure, how we discover things and how the encounters are resolved. And when we go down the dungeon, I'm probably that's the most I actually keep to the rules almost to the letter. But again, I'm going to bring in some. I'll allude to it now, is the difficulty and danger level. And I'll actually try to follow Gary Gygax's advice, where it says you should base it on the level of your characters, the appropriate danger. So I think I'll leave that there and say that that's something for us to discuss next time. Okay, I think that's enough for us today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.